Hi everyone, I'm Anthony O'Flynn, and in this video I'll be offering an energetic update for the spring equinox in the southern hemisphere and obviously the autumn equinox in the northern hemisphere. Not too sure how that works out in flat earth language, but here we go. So the equinox will be at 11:05 a.m. Bit of a party going on over there. On the 23rd of the 9th, 23rd of September, Queensland time. So that's coming up pretty rapidly. For those of you who've been watching these videos for quite some time, I previously have gone into depth on the equinox updates and the solstice updates, so 4 of those energetic updates for the year, where I've given a broader scope of what's occurring. Excuse me. And because I'm making more videos now, I will focus in this video at least on a more narrow range of topics as I'm making specific topics, videos on specific topics. So obviously I won't be addressing the ongoing saga with the royal family in this video at all. There's enough media coverage of that, but I will say that as far as going forward on that topic, you will see a lot of secrets and information and facts coming to light in regard to the history of the royal family, and believe me, it is not pretty, and this will destabilise the support for the monarchy. It'll be interesting to see how that translates into the overall goals and objectives of King Charles. That remains to be seen, but what you will see definitely is a diminished support and a diminished public approval ratings of the king himself and of the monarchy, because this is another one of the institutions that needs to be revealed as to the ongoing accumulation of resources and the various practices and cover-ups, and also the incredible history of the royal family. It's quite mind-boggling when you really look into it, how anyone in this day and age can truly respect an organisation like the firm. So anyway, so this video will focus mostly on the spiritual dimension of things, which I feel is the most necessary and the most overlooked in this paradigm shift. But before that, there's a saying that if you don't know who the mark in the room is, it's you. And this saying or this understanding is going to become a very painful truth for many people around the world, particularly in the Western countries, particularly in Western Europe, and also obviously here in Australia. Now, I'm not just talking about the ongoing fallout from the magic potion, the one that is the popular form of medicine that is being widely distributed and consumed, which that whole saga or fallout is only really just beginning, and that will be ongoing across this decade, and the devastation that will occur to that will start an entire tsunami of awakening that goes way, way prior to this whole rollout and even to the pandemic itself, that we're only now starting to see the beginning of what that will actually do in terms of people's consciousness, and this is the key thing. But when I say that, if you don't know who the mark is in the room, it's you, I'm referring actually to a lot of things to do with the financial situation around the world, and particularly the energy crisis that we're seeing unfold in Europe. So basically, because of this extreme situation with the energy prices and so on, that that basically it's going to create so much chaos. Now, people in the Love and Light crew would think that chaos is a bad thing, that we need to transition to the new earth and 5D peacefully and harmoniously. Well, that's possible at an individual level, depend on an individual's person's consciousness, but expect chaos, because this paradigm must fail. And this paradigm is failing. We're in systemic decline. If you haven't realised now, there's going to be some kind of massive social upheaval in Europe, probably prior even to the winter. We're only at September at the moment. So whatever happens between now and February, Western Europe will be moving into 2023 in a completely different belief system around the government, the corporations, and the unfair allocation of resources that's skewed in the favour of these CEOs and these business tycoons and everyone else who's basically a parasite on the system. So that's going to cause huge, colossal upheaval, and you're going to see things that we never even witnessed over the protests and everything from the pandemic. This is going to go much, much, much deeper than that, because it's one thing I've seen, at least here in Australia, is that people don't seem that particularly concerned with their bodily autonomy, with their rights, with human rights, with freedoms, with liberties. But the one thing that everyone here, at least in Australia, is very concerned with is money. So if you take someone's money away from them, that's when you're going to start to see people speaking out and taking to the streets and everything. And by that, I'm referring to the fact that all the money, basically discretionary spending, is basically going to be spent on energy. Not all of it, obviously, but that's going to be taking up a bigger percentage of people's income. So this is really what is going to be happening moving into 2023, and the energy crisis, as I see it, will not be resolved anytime soon. So around the world, the economic fallout of what's occurring now, we're seeing the gradual decline of the US economy, which is actually happening faster and faster. All the metrics, all the data coming out of the US shows that it is going to be extremely turbulent, basically from this point onwards, and this turbulence will increase. And ultimately we're staring down the barrel of a Great Depression. The latest figures, if you believe them from the government, are that the inflation rate is at 8% in the US. So that's what's happening. The housing bubble around the world is also collapsing. The Canada housing market is down 22% since February 2022. So that's a pretty sharp decline, and real household incomes are falling rapidly. That's another key indicator there. And also Wellington in New Zealand has recorded a 20% downturn of real estate since the peak. So, and they actually started putting their interest rates up before Australia. So you're going to see some wild depreciations of real estate here in Australia and around the world, obviously, particularly in some of these overinflated areas, particularly in the capital cities here in Australia, because of the property bubble, which is basically a Ponzi scheme. People have no intention of ever paying off that debt. They're really just simply trying to hold on to their property long enough for it to increase, to then sell it to the next person underneath them. So that's really how I see things going in the terms of the economy, to really give a very general overview. And this is only going to become more and more problematic, and also the energy in terms of petrol and everything will be soaking up more discretionary spending. So very minimum we'll have a recession here in Australia, but overall I think it'll be a global depression, and we'll probably get through this year okay, actually. Retail and all these other sectors of the economy involving discretionary spending will start to shrink, but we'll probably end up sometime next year officially going into a recession. But the way they manufacture or massage the data these days, it means that they can make the figures look much better than what they appear. So at least here in Australia there'll be something of a cushion. That is, unless there's some huge collapse in the stock market. When those inflation figures were released in the US, the stock market plunged, and whether that influences the broader economy or not, and to what degree, remains to be seen. But you can be sure that now we're heading into very, very deep, turbulent economic waters, which will be compounded by the amount of debt that we have in Australia, which is, by some metrics, the highest in the world, second to some metrics only to Switzerland. So This is all basically coming down the pipeline now, and it's unavoidable. It should have happened a long time ago, but it's here now. So because of this inflation, you're obviously seeing a trend that people are now taking physical delivery of the precious metals, and the paper trades are now starting to not be as popular as what they were, in the sense that people are opting for the physical metal. And this is showing up in that the LBMA, the London Bullion Metals Association, the vaults are declining every month for the last 9 months, and they're actually at an all-time low. Here comes the kangaroo. Hello, hello. Uh, this is at an all-time low since 2016. That the when they started recording the quantities. So that's what's happening now, and there's also pressure on the COMEX as well. The language coming out by all the alternative financial investors is that there is set to be a pretty big bull run into the precious metals, and obviously there's a lot of good arguments for that, which I won't go into here, but basically wealth preservation is perhaps the biggest motivation people actually buying gold and obviously silver, due to the ongoing belief, at least, or allegations that it's manipulated, that basically the prices will eventually find true price discovery. So there's a kangaroo just going up the path now, and that will eventually happen. That once the COMEX defaults, once the vaults are drained, once this illusion of this paper trades are broken, then you'll see that this is going to change pretty quickly. So that's really what I wanted to say on the economic situation, and this is what I'm referring to, is that there's all these other rumours flying around at the moment that there will be some sort of problem with the banks. I'm not sure about that. I don't like to add to speculation unless I'm sure about it, because it's not helpful, and I don't want to put out information that's fear generated. But there are a number of people claiming certain things that are going on, but I don't want to add to that voice or add to the things which I can't give confirmed information about. But what I do want to say is that what's been overlooked in this overall paradigm shift is the spiritual dimension, and by that we are focusing collectively on the external challenges, whether it's the war in Ukraine, whether it's the ongoing saga with the royal family, whether it's inflation, whether it's the property bubble, whether it's mortgage stress, whether it's problems with the housing market, the rental market, whether it's this kind of woke green left-wing agenda, which is now being played out in Australia and obviously around the world, the abuse of power, the abuse of office, the corruption, the secret societies, the issues of 9/11, the banking system. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And people are continually referring to this as the spiritual war. And there is merit to this statement, and I do agree with this statement, but the problem is that we're overlooking this in terms of the inner spiritual war, and we're always projecting it outward. And this is very problematic, because the 90% of the truth movement, the awakening community, is very firmly fixed on the social injustices, the various issues that I've just described, without really considering the more inner evolution. Now, having said that, this whole reality is structured so that we can experience this evolution, this deeper evolution, and in this lifetime there's an opportunity to make this quantum evolution. And basically our entire life is geared around this process of evolution, when we have the discernment to actually experience it and understand it. And this topic needs to be much more considered, much deeper, as we move through the shift. And at the moment it's really been overlooked in favour of everything that is external. And so what I'm suggesting here is that, I don't mean this in a pessimistic way, because there are examples of people who have come through the pandemic and they have gone through a major evolutionary leap because they decided to stay true to their values, not complying with certain mandates, not taking the magic potion, all these sorts of things. And basically they have gone through a massive state of true empowerment. Now, other people have struggled because of that, perhaps financially, socially, and even in their relationships and so on. But so some people are a work in progress, other people are moving towards the end of this spiritual test, and they're now emerging from it as basically changed people. Now, that doesn't mean to say that everyone who hasn't taken the magic potion is on this same quantum leap in this evolutionary journey, because there's also a lot of people out there that were never going to take it. They weren't going to be bullied, coerced, manipulated. There's just no way. So for them, they haven't necessarily capitulated, made this leap, but they've sort of consolidated who they are and what they stand for, which will actually help them moving forward with this greater sense of personal empowerment and inner strength. And of course, there's other people who basically have completely folded under peer pressure, wanted to be part of the herd, wanted to remain in this group consensus, feeling safety in numbers, all these qualities. And for them, they haven't passed this test. Now, I'm not to say that anything that life is a failure or a waste or anything like this. I don't think like that personally. But evolution is basically walking up this mountain of personal growth, of transformation. And it means that at best things have stagnated. Now, that doesn't mean anything's lost, because there'll always be an opportunity for this growth again. But it means changing the inner qualities, the inner consciousness, in order to express this externally. And this has to happen to pass this test. It's not negotiable. So this is something that many people have failed to understand and to be lucid about. And then many people are perhaps also unaware of the spiritual dimension of this test, even though they've passed it. So it's quite a complicated situation, and every person will have a unique experience as we move through this whole decade. But what's really important to understand is that this inner spiritual war, this should be our real focus. Like our war against our hatred, our war against our fear, our war against our inability to love, to not be compassionate. Now, having said that, I'm not meaning that someone should be at war with themselves in any way at all. That's totally counterproductive. But what I am saying is that the inner journey, the inner realization, is the real key focus here for this colossal evolutionary leap. And by just changing the deck chairs on the Titanic, by moving things around and getting a new government or getting a new financial system or getting all these things, it's not really going to necessarily change our inner world at all. And this is important because this is a litmus test, and we've had a huge litmus test in 2020, 2021, 2022. So I see this moving into the next few years as an opportunity for those who have stagnated or failed this test. I mean, there's no point sugarcoating it. Some people have. As to grow in other ways, perhaps experience different things and then emerge through this in a different way, a different path. Up the same mountain, but taking a different path. But people have to come to the realization first that they've been conned, that they've been lied to, that they've been manipulated, and to really be present with that, to really be have that integrated into who they are, and then move on from that, which will be very difficult, because as we've seen with the human ego, it's quite staggering actually that there are some people that have so much pride that they refuse to admit that they've been lied to, that they've been coerced or conned, and this is simply the case. So this is going to be a very, very big topic moving forwards, and I feel that people who are resonating with this message now are very much ahead of the curve, because in the awakening community, the collective of the awakening community is still in a place of the external focus. And it's not necessarily bad or wrong. It's just that this is very limited as far as true transformation. And many people in the awakening community are coming from a really good place. They really have good intentions, they're really well-meaning, they have a good heart. But there's also an aspect of varying degrees of just a projection of anger and fear, and underneath that, actually fear. And yeah, this is what I'm discuss a lot in my book, is actually these pitfalls of the awakening, paradigm shift, the global awakening of humanity, 2020 to 2040 by me. And how to move through that. Because look, there is a lot to be despondent about, to be frustrated about in this paradigm, definitely. But this paradigm is failing and it will continue to fail. So we have to actually integrate the chaos. This is where the real gold is. And no one's really wanting that at a personality level, at an ego level, but at a soul level, this is exactly what we've come to experience, to understand, and to the magnitude of what is occurring is lost, I think, on everyone, actually, you know, like everyone, including myself. It's just the scale and the scope of things. And people thinking that this, the New Age doctrine is going to actually solve a lot of these problems are very sorely mistaken. And that's why this false light of the New Age, which I'm seeing, you know, more and more of it popping up as this hopium and so on, this class of souls are going to really struggle moving through the shift, because the foundation of the spirituality of the New Age is basically built on sand. And some of the elements of classic spirituality are eternal, and they are never going to go away, some of these incredible principles and states of consciousness, whereas the New Age, or at least the practice that many people have the New Age, is simply like a candy. It's like candy, mind candy. And these lessons are not often integrated at a deeper level, at a soul level. And this will be a very painful journey with this false light of the New Age and what I call pseudo-spirituality or Instagram spirituality, which is not really founded on any genuine principles. And this will also go through a pretty radical transformation this decade, with many people, some of these big names in the New Age, channelers and so on, psychics, all these sorts of people are really coming unstuck with their own belief system and how to navigate things in this very, very challenging time. And that's why I've said previously, if you go back and look at my previous videos, that there will be a resurgence of people turning towards Jesus and Christianity in a genuine way, which has already started actually. It's been going on for a while. This will intensify, because this is really the aim of the suffering, in essence, is to actually turn people back to God, because people in this paradigm have just turned away from God so much that we're so completely lost collectively that we really don't understand the difference between good and evil anymore. And this is becoming more and more apparent. And the reason why it's becoming more apparent is the light is also emerging, and so we have this greater polarity, because in Kali Yuga we just have this darkness, so everything is shrouded in darkness. But the more that these upheavals come and the revelations come around various public figures, politicians, agendas, whatever, it shows that the polarity of the light is starting to shine on this darkness, on this, give this illumination to everything that is dark, that is hidden, that is perverted, in this inverted reality. So that's very exciting, but don't expect this process to be smooth or easygoing. And I'm not suggesting that we invoke this challenge and particularly struggle into our life in any way, but to understand that, in my view at least, it's very wise at this time to detach from the collective, at least in certain aspects, because the collective is really hell-bent on intense suffering and levels of insanity that I haven't seen in my lifetime, which will probably amplify actually as things get more chaotic and people actually start to really become truly unhinged. So this is why the false light as well will also become illuminated, because where we're going, it's no joke, this Satya Yuga, this golden age, this age of light, there is a clear distinction between the light and the dark. And people moving into this state of consciousness need to earn their stripes, need to pass this rite of passage. I can't stress this enough. And it will be very difficult clinging to these false light values, to this pseudo-spirituality, to these delusional values of the new age. And that, you know, there's just going to be no effort made on behalf of people to transform, except just watching a few videos and you know, treating spirituality and soul evolution like a hobby. So that is the function, unfortunately, of this intense suffering, which it's going to touch everyone to some degree, particularly with the fallout of the economic system. But as I said, this economic system must fail. It will fail. Not so the globalists can launch their digital currencies and keep everyone in this smart prison, this smart grid, but because we have to deal with this Luciferian monetary system and understand that it is probably the single biggess thing that enslaves everyone. That the fractional reserve banking system is a debt-based system, and if you are owing debt, essentially it is a system based on slavery, albeit modern-day slavery. So that is going to be very problematic around the world, and how the masses will respond to that will be firstly through deep fear and through, yeah, it's going to get pretty messy. And that is also one of my messages in this energetic forecast, is things are going to get pretty messy pretty quick from here, particularly with the fallout from the magic potion as well, which we're still waiting to see what the extent of the damage will be in regard to that. So this whole process, this spiritual test that we're undergoing now, it's really important that we set our spiritual compass in the right direction and find this inner strength. I mean, it's not always easy to have a loving approach to different aspects of your life, or to be in a state of acceptance of things you can't change. I don't make these videos or have this attitude that evolution is easy in any way, but that's what we're here for. And if we can have this lucidity, this awareness, this discernment that things are we're all going to get challenged in our different ways, but to try to rise up to meet those challenges, because everything then gets easier. The more we head towards the light, the faster we can leave this debris of this lower aspects of our ego behind. You know, the pettiness, the small-mindedness, the need for revenge or retribution, and then we can truly start to integrate these principles of the light. So that's really where we're going, and if we can see things as an opportunity to move into the light rather than a negative karma or various suffering, that will help us a lot. And I'm not saying that that's easy in any way, but the subtle energy is changing rapidly on the planet now, and it will help support this process a lot. But I feel that we haven't even begun in terms of the colossal waves that will start to embody our aura and the planet more in the second half of the decade. I don't really see anything changing for the positive in the short term. I think that this whole thing with Nasara Gasara is just a psyop. The thing with Q is just a psyop. There's no one coming to save us. This is the spiritual test of humanity. This is the battle of humanity. This must fight, that we've come here to fight. And I know that there's people all around the world that are hearing this call, and they will never quit. They are the true warriors of the light. They understand implicitly, even at a subconscious level, what is occurring. And these souls have come here to fight, and they didn't come here to lose. And by fight, I don't mean physically, but they have come here to see this transition and to see it through to the end. And there will be no surrender, there will be no retreat. It is simply a soul mission. And that is what the elements of the dark simply fail to understand. That the people here who may look disempowered to them in terms of financial resources, personal power, status, and all these other things, but as we move into this deeper, the qualities that are necessary to achieve this mission are none of those things. And the commitment to do this is profound. And simply accumulating material trinkets or power or something like that, that is where the globalists and the agenda comes unstuck, because that's not the motivation of the people that came here for this paradigm shift. And this will become increasingly obvious as we go deeper into this, to see who will carry these values and carry this consciousness moving forward. So much more to say. Check out the YouTube channel and have a look and see if there's something there for you. We're making lots more videos, lots to talk about really. I'm only really scratching the surface at the moment. There's a lot of different topics to cover, but I just hope that everyone has a great solstice, equinox, and to stay strong through all this, because the power of resilience, the power of commitment, and the soul power can triumph over any adversity, of any limitation, and the light will prevail. Thanks for watching. We live in epic times.